Okay, good afternoon. My name is Janet McRae and I have responsibility here at QE for A-Level Chemistry. With me this afternoon is another one of our chemistry teachers, Julia Magno. And what we're going to do is we're going to hopefully try to answer some of the questions that you might have about coming to QE to study A-Level Chemistry. Now, what I'm going to ask you to do is to type in any questions that you have. So there's like a facility on the system for you to do that. And whilst you're typing in your questions, Julia will take a look through them. And I'll just tell you a little bit about the A-Level Chemistry course that we offer here at QE whilst we're gathering your questions. So we follow the OCR Specification A course here at QE. And over the 2 years, we cover 6 modules of chemistry. What we do is we do 3 modules in, no, I beg your pardon, we do 4 modules in first year and we do 2 modules in second year. And we award a practical endorsement separately. So at QE, you get 5 hours of chemistry lessons per week, usually with 1 chemistry teacher, but occasionally you will have 2 chemistry teachers. For example, this year, Julia and I share 1 chemistry group and we teach half of the lessons each. We do a mixture of different teaching techniques. We do some lessons taught from the front. We do practical work. We do group activities, do a lot of activities with whiteboards to check your understanding. We use presentations. We spend lessons doing practice exam questions, problem solving activities. So you get a bit of variety. And obviously we do a little bit of individual work as well. We have lesson booklets that we tend to give to our students, and we use these, we work through these, but we also ask you to have your own paper so that you can add supplementary notes to those. And for the practical endorsement, what we do is we give you a separate booklet for your practical work that looks a little bit like this. So I'll just check with Julia and see if we have any questions.
We've got a couple of little questions, just waiting for people to type some in at the moment,
right.
but there's always things. Oh, for note, we've got one here. For note taking, are iPads allowed?
Well, we certainly would allow students to have iPads to make their notes on. I guess the reason we don't get that as often in chemistry is because we do practical work in the lab, and obviously there's a risk of getting chemicals spilt on any electronic equipment. But certainly we would not have an issue with it. If you wanted to make notes on some sort of tablet, that would be absolutely fine.
Right. We've got one of the things that's usually asked is what's different to A-Level compared to GCSE?
Okay, so a lot of the topics that you will study at A-Level will be similar to topics that you've studied at GCSE. So we do a lot of work on organic chemistry, and at GCSE you'll have done work on alkanes and alkenes. We do a lot of work on the periodic table at A-Level. At GCSE you've probably looked at group 1 or group 2 and group 7. At A-Level we look at the section between group 2 and group 3, the transition elements. So we look at topics that you will have studied already, but we look at them in more depth and more detail. And we take the foundations that you've learned from GCSE and we build on them. So there will be some familiarity in the topics. We cover a much larger amount of content than you cover at GCSE. So you might spend a few weeks on a topic at GCSE. You might find at A-Level that you've covered the whole topic in a matter of 5 lessons in 1 week. We expect you to kind of take a bigger role in your learning. So in class, we'll expect you to ask questions about the work that we're doing and really get involved in the work that we're doing. And sometimes you'll work in groups to learn things for yourselves. You'll do much more complicated practical work than you will have done at GCSE. We often find when students come in first year, they're a little bit scared to do some practical work. And then when they look back at the end of second year at the sort of apparatus that they're able to manipulate confidently, they really do feel quite proud of themselves. In terms of the way college is organised, you'll only have 3 subjects that you will take when you come to study for your level 3 qualification. So that's obviously very different to GCSE. You'll spend more hours per week in those subjects. and you have a less formal relationship with your teachers. For example, you'll call us by our first names.
Okay, got somebody following on from the A-level thing. They've asked, they're doing AQA at GCSE, would this make it harder for them to adapt to OCR?
So the content that is in all three of the specifications for A-level chemistry that are on offer in the UK is governed by Ofqual, and there are very little differences between the content of the three specifications. There's certainly no problem with you doing an AQA GCSE and moving on to do OCR at A-level. As I say, there's very little difference between the content of the from the different exam boards, very little. So it wouldn't be an issue at all.
And there's two questions that are pretty similar, and it was somebody's asked what grade they need at GCSE to be accepted onto the course, but somebody else has also said if they got a 5, would they still be able to study chemistry?
Okay, so chemistry is a difficult A-level. There's no denying that. And our previous experience of students who got certain GCSE grades and their success rate on A-level chemistry is what has set the entrance requirements for the A-level chemistry course. So the reason that we ask you to get a 6 in your science at GCSE is because if you do get a 6 in your science at GCSE as a minimum, then you stand the best chance of being successful on an A-level chemistry course and getting a good grade at A-level chemistry. In the past, students who have had lower than a 6, so an average score maybe of 5.8 even, they found it challenging to complete their A-level chemistry. So what we would do is we would counsel you at enrolment very carefully, and we'd explain to you about the other possibilities, other science subjects that you could study with the 5 that you have in your GCSEs. So our entrance requirement for A-level chemistry is that you would have 2 6s in your science at GCSE. So that could be 6 in combined science, or it could be a 6 in your chemistry GCSE. We also ask for an average GCSE score of 5.5. And again, that's because of the skills that are needed to complete the A-level chemistry. So 6s in triple chemistry or 2 6s in combined science, a 6 in your maths at GCSE as well, and an average GCSE score of 5.5. Those are the requirements that will allow you to walk on to the chemistry A-level course. And if you don't get those grades, then we will have a discussion with you at enrolment about the best possibility for you to attain the highest grades possible in your level 3 qualification.
Okay, right. I've got 3 sort of questions, so that are pretty similar. Somebody's asked if we do coursework, but obviously that's linked to the practicals, and I've got how many practicals are there and what's the % of practical to theory. So
So the first question, do we do coursework? The answer is no. Our practical work is an important part of the A-level chemistry. It reinforces your understanding. On average, we say that we do 1 hour of practical work a week. So we have 5 hours of chemistry a week in college. So 1 hour, a fifth of your chemistry time should be spent completing practical work. We work towards what we call the practical endorsement, and this is awarded separately to your A-level. And if you get awarded the practical endorsement, then that tells your university course or your future employer that you're a competent practical chemist. We award it by completing all of our practical work and by developing your practical skills. But what we do, because we know that you get examined on the practical work as part of your exam at the end of the year, I showed you this a little bit earlier. We record all of the practical work that you do in first year in a little booklet like this. We record, well, I said all of the practical work. We record all of the practical skills that you cover in first year in a booklet, and all of the practical skills that you cover in second year in a booklet, so that you have something to revise from for the practical aspect of your exam paper. So the examiner will just set you an exam question and it will be based on a practical, and you will have covered a practical that's very similar to that, or in fact often identical to that, so you'll know the theory that's associated with that practical. So I would say no coursework, a fifth of our time is spent completing practical work. Chemistry is probably the most practical of the sciences, and you're examined on that practical work as part of your exam. So actually, it probably makes up a fifth of your overall chemistry A level in terms of the amount of questions that you would be asked that relate to practical work.
Okay. This one is about progression after chemistry, and somebody's asking, and I think it's good, it's do we get many students reading medicine, and is there support with their application?
Okay, so we have quite a number of students who apply to study medicine, and I would say almost exclusively they will take A-level chemistry if they want to go and study medicine. It's quite difficult to get a lot of choice of medical schools without A-level chemistry. So really the best subject choice to go on and study medicine is to do both A-level chemistry and A-level biology, and then another A-level that you stand a very good chance of getting an A grade in, because that's the entrance requirement that you're going to need to get into medical school, a minimum of 3 A grades. A stars would be preferable. In terms of support for applying to university, we have a system in college where you have a progress tutor who will help you with your university application. Your subject teachers will also help you with your university application, and we have a fabulous careers department who do workshops to help you with personal statements and applications. So you'd be incredibly well supported in your application to medical school. And as I say, we have quite a lot of students who apply to medical school every year from chemistry.
Okay. Obviously there's concerns about COVID, and somebody's just asked if they missed key topics due to COVID, would we cover this again? And somebody else has said, will this situation be taken into account when accepting students and covering GCSE content?
Yeah. So just to give you an example for how we've approached it within the chemistry department. Our current second year chemists were in lockdown when they completed the organic chemistry from first year. So when planning our second year delivery this year, what we did was we factored in that before we taught any new topics in second year, we needed to recap the work that had been done during lockdown in first year. And that's what we did. We'd introduce a second year topic like aromatic chemistry. And to cover that, we did a little bit of work on the alkenes that we covered during lockdown with our first years so that they were ready for the new chemistry that built on it. And we did the same thing with our new first years this year. We knew that they'd come from GCSE and they hadn't all completed their GCSEs fully. So every time we start a topic, we begin by saying, this is what you will have covered at GCSE. Here's a little bit of practice on it. And we confirm that we're happy with the content from GCSE before we start with the A-level content. So we're very aware of the current situation, and we do our very best to try and help our students to keep up to speed with their work. Currently, we're delivering our lessons through Google Classroom, and if students are poorly and they do miss a lesson, we record our lessons and the students can access those lesson recordings. And I said before that there's a kind of less formal relationship between staff and students at QE. So our students feel very able to email us and to ask us about catch-up. So I think that we're doing quite a good job of trying to cope with the current situation.
Okay. How big are class sizes?
Okay, so class sizes on the whole tend to be floating somewhere around about 20 students. We have some classes that are as large as 24 and some classes that are probably as small as 18, but that's kind of the number that you're talking about. And that number has been consistent over probably the past 10 years or so. So that's the kind of numbers that you would expect. It's a really nice number because there are enough students to get a bit of kind of rapport going, and few enough students that there's time for the teacher to get round and to help if there are any difficulties.
I'm going to skip a couple of questions which we can come back to if we
Okay.
get time, because they're the same questions that you answered earlier, but they might have missed.
Okay.
Do you do an AS level after the first year?
We really don't. And AS levels are something that are gradually being phased out. But chemistry, OCR chemistry does offer the AS level exam. So occasionally we have students. I have a student this year who's looking to go to America to start a new qualification in America. And so he is thinking that he's going to sit an AS exam. Well, he was planning to sit an AS exam in the summer. Whether or not he can this year, we don't know. But that would be the kind of scenario. If we had somebody like that who was going to move on and do something else, then we can have them sit the AS exam whilst it's on offer. But as a general rule, we don't have our first years sit the AS exam. We do a college exam. At the end of the year, we have a college exam. And if I'm honest, that's very similar to the AS exam in terms of level of difficulty. So you will get a flavour what the AS exam's like.
Okay. There's how will practicals work to keep social distancing? Will we just watch from our seats?
Okay, so we work with an organisation called CLEAPS, and quite possibly your school will as well, to coordinate our practical work safely. And we have a set of guidelines that we have drawn up that allow us to do our practical work almost as we've done it previously, except we have to be very careful with hand washing before and after we do our practical work. And we also have to be very, very careful with the safety glasses that we use. They have to be very carefully sanitized between each use. We used to use lab coats. We're not allowed to because of the COVID situation. But otherwise, we have been running our practicals with kind of COVID guidelines, but really not that dissimilarly to how we did them before. So you certainly won't be sitting watching. It will be hands-on completion of the practical work, but obviously with certain safety measures in place.
Okay. Homework. Is there a large amount of homework, and would it be online?
So you will have at least one piece of homework to complete every week. Since the start of COVID, we've been trying to set our homework on Google Classroom, so that you do your homework on a Google document and you hand it in to us, and we mark it electronically and give it back to you. And that's our plan to continue with that. So a piece of homework every week to be submitted. We also, once you've done a little bit of chemistry, we give you a past paper to complete each week. And what we've done this year is we've given you access to the mark scheme and got you to mark the paper, and we've recorded the marks. We say that you have 5 hours worth of chemistry time in college, and you should do 5 hours worth of independent study at home to supplement your time in college. So an hour for homework, an hour for past papers, and then you should be doing 3 more hours where you're reinforcing and going over the work that you have done in lesson with your teachers. So yes, quite a lot of homework, but remember you do only have 3 subjects at A level.
A couple of these questions are questions that were answered at the beginning, so I think if they've missed them, they need to maybe just look back.
Okay.
Do we use Teams or another website?
We use Google Meets for our lessons. That's what we use, and we find it works quite effectively, and our students are used to it. At the start of the year, we do a practice in lesson Google Meet. We did just in case we had lockdown situation, so our students were ready for their Google Meet lessons.
Yeah, and pass grade percentages for A's and A stars.
So on the display behind me, you can see our pass rate over the last 3 years when it was exams. I haven't put 2020 on because obviously that was teacher grades that were awarded. 100% pass rate in 2019, high grade 65.5%, 2018, 98.9% pass rate, 69.3% high grades, 2017, 100% pass rate, 66.7% high grades. So high grades, we expect to be around about 65 to 70%. Pass rate, we expect to be 100%. Yeah, and that's been fairly consistent over the last 10 years or so.
Yeah. So I think when
10-2.
All right. Yeah. So
if there are other questions, then the best place to look is on the college website. There's a link to the chemistry bridging site that tells you all about A-level chemistry. And so I would go on there, and I would also suggest that you look on the college Facebook, Instagram, Twitter sites, because there's lots of information about the subjects available. So you can certainly access there, and you can always email any questions to the chemistry department. There's no problem with that. We'll be happy to answer them.
I think all the other questions on there were actually answered earlier on, so people might want to listen. I think there's a recording.
I think there probably is, yeah.
So I think they're going to record this, so you guys can, any questions you feel we haven't answered, it was answered fairly early on, and we do have to stop, I think.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you very much indeed for listening. And as I say, any further questions, please don't hesitate to email us here at the chemistry department. Thank you very much.